Hey everyone, I'm Chris Lesniak,
And I'm Rob Byer, and this is
the Debate Math Podcast.
Debating Mathy Topics and Mathy Pedagogy with Mathy people just like you.
Let's get into this month's debate. So, you may have heard talk about math anxiety or helping students to build math confidence with their skills.
Well, our guest today will focus on the idea of math identity. What is it? And how do we foster it?
And for this hot seat debate, we have two debaters here to state why they think teachers must cultivate a positive math identity.
First up, we have a former middle and high school math teacher, math instructional coach, and district math curriculum coordinator in North Carolina, whose love for math education led her to join Unbound Ed as a math specialist, where she rose to the role of math director. Her enthusiasm for mathematics education is infectious, and she's dedicated to empowering every individual to become a math person. She is passionate about reshaping educational systems and frameworks to help educators plan and deliver grade level, engaging, affirming, and meaningful STEM instruction. It's Rolanda Baldwin. Hi, Rolanda.
Hi, Rob. Nice to see you today.
Can you remind our listeners where you are and what your current role is?
Yes, I am located in the heart of North Carolina, right here in Greensboro, Guilford County. And I am currently serving as Vice President of Program Design at Unbound Ed.
Awesome. And the question we always ask our guests: when did math first become controversial to you?
That is a great question. And as I think about it, I think I have three distinct moments or pivotal moments that I can think of that kind of changed my trajectory. I like to call them inflection points. The first being when I was a junior in high school, I had gone to the North Carolina School of Science and Math, which you just go your junior and senior year. And up until that point, math had been extremely easy for me, just made A's, everything was lovely. And then I took pre-calculus, and the faculty at that school had written the curriculum, and I struggled. I struggled. But because I had a positive math identity, like I struggled for a little while, but then I got back on track, ended up getting a degree in engineering. So like got over that little controversy. And then after 8 years of being an engineer, I decided to change paths and I became a math educator. And it became controversial to me again because I realized in my K-8 or K-12 experience, I was around people who pretty much had positive math identities or pushed through. But once I became an educator, I realized the disparity between like no one had neutral feelings about math. Like either they hated it or they loved it. And I thought if I could just be positive when I taught math, that would translate to the students beginning to love math. But then that was controversial for me because I was like, no, it's not. So I really had to go and reteach myself math so that I could reach all of my students. And then the third inflection point was when I left the classroom and began to support other math educators. And I saw the things that were happening across classrooms, and I saw different students getting different access and being treated in different ways. So that was controversial for me, and it became even more of my mission that all students would have great access to effective instruction.
Thank you for sharing that. And then arguing along with her is an educator who has taught at the middle and high school levels. He has worked to bring access to excellent math instruction in many school systems nationwide as an associate director of instructional support and as a math lead for instruction partners. He led the teaching and learning of mathematics for over 30 schools as a senior instructional specialist for Pasco County Schools. When he's not supporting math programs like Unbound Ed, he likes to spend his free time doing activities with his wife and two kids. He's an avid Peloton rider and rower and hopes to see you on the leaderboard soon. It's Brian Dean. Hi, Brian.
Thanks for that intro, Chris.
Can you tell our listeners where you are and what your current role is?
Yeah, Brian Dean, he, him, his, and I am coming to you outside of Cincinnati, Ohio. My current role is Director of Program Design at Unbound Ed, supporting the Math Pathway programs. Everything Math Pathway. get my fingers on.
Okay, and then the question we ask all of our guests: when did math first become controversial to you?
Yeah, and this is such an interesting question, Chris. Like, it really is just you don't think like as a math educator, right? Like having a career that focuses on teaching students math, it doesn't seem like it'd be full of controversy, at least the math part of the job, right? But the question had me like reflect kind of like Rolanda did on my experience with math and the journey, and like a couple key moments stuck out, and I think I'm gonna just go into depth on one. And so that one is I want to share as being an instructional coach at a high school outside of Tampa, Florida. And prior to that role of instructional coach, I was responsible. My role was teaching students eighth grade math and algebra one at the feeder middle school, right? And so now here I am at the high school. And so the school and the staff's new to me, but the students are not. Like through my career, I taught almost all the students. I was like their eighth grade math teacher, right? And so I used to joke with my students in the halls, like, I would see them and they're like, "Oh, Mr. Dean, you're here." I was like, "Yeah, all those years repeating eighth grade math, I finally got promoted to high school." And I thought I was hilarious. The kids tolerated my dad jokes at best, right? And so, but what was controversial for me was as the math instructional coach sitting there, like doing observational rounds, supporting the math teachers, all those things that instructional coaches do, um, starting to watch my students' hands go up in math class and ask questions and have gaps in their understanding on things that I was responsible for teaching them at the middle school level, right? And so it made me start to question, um, like these students, like according to like their who passed the state test, who their scores deemed me a highly effective teacher, but yet in algebra 2 they were asking for support on how to factor a simple quadratic, and it was like, oh, like damn, like just really trying to like question my instructional practices, my effectiveness, and like that really rocked my world. Just realizing that I might have focused on short-term gains and tricks over long-term understanding, which really just launched me into this like notion, behind me are the words, I can't see it because of my head, but know better, do better. When you know better, you do better. And so just desire to understand how students learn math at a conceptual level. And like I've been riding that train ever since.
Very good. Thank you. Welcome to you both. And with that, let's get into the debate. We begin with opening statements from our team of 2 speakers.
They are arguing that teachers must cultivate a positive math identity. Let me try that again. They're arguing that teachers must cultivate a positive math identity. Rolanda and Brian, you're up. Your time begins now.
Thanks, Rob. So, as math educators in many different settings, Rolanda and I hear the phrase, and I'm sure you've heard it too, I am not a math person, right? Each time we hear those 6 words, especially from students, like part of our soul just gets crushed. And so, as you just stated, we're here to tell you that we are all math people and we must put in the work within our classrooms to cultivate a positive math identity in our students and possibly even ourselves. And so, like this feeling of not being a math person, it shows up often when students are confronted with a challenge in the math classroom. And it's could stem from a narrow view of what they believe it means to do math. And it's important to note that like this view doesn't come out of nowhere. It's developed over time through all their academic and personal experiences with the subject. I mean, we are constantly bombarded by society with narrow and negative messages about math. Like we've all seen the social media memes that poke fun at math and the usefulness. We've seen shows where being bad at math is like a punchline. Regardless of the root cause, like it's real because experts estimate about 30% of our students um, have math anxiety. And EdWeek Research Center showed that 2/3 of teachers reported that it was a challenge within their classrooms. So it just doesn't stop at the student level. Like when we think about cultivating a positive math identity in our students, we also need to think about their parents because we hear I'm not a math person from them as well. Uh, at events like open house, parent teacher conferences, it's okay, Rob, like you're not good at math. I wasn't good at math either. And like So like we need to shift that narrative. And again, just like their students, these feelings are rooted in all their negative experiences with math from school and life. When I think about like mathematics at through like my career, some like a lot of times that last math course you had was something like you had to get through to do what you actually wanted to do with your life, right? It was like a negative experience, or might have even exited you from what you wanted to do with your life. And this makes sense too because about 1 in 5 adults report having math anxiety themselves. And so even when we get to like to the school level, we hear the phrase "I'm not a math person" from administrators who oversee the math department, or even the teachers themselves. In that same survey by the Edweek Research Center, it showed that 1 in 4 math teachers felt anxious doing math. So in our work, we focus on supporting educators who must cultivate a positive math identity in each and every learner by providing grade level, engaging, affirming, and meaningful math instruction, what we call GLEAM math instruction.
You're absolutely right, Brian. I think it's so important that we reframe how we define math. Mathematics is more than just numbers and formulas. It's a gateway to confidence, problem solving, and empowerment. So in order to truly unlock each student's potential, like you just said, we do have to approach it in a gleaming way. So when we talk about grade level, we're talking about holding students to high expectations, and we provide all students with that grade level instruction. It nurtures the students' confidence and positions them as someone who can do mathematics and who belongs in mathematics. When we provide engaging instruction, it nurtures students' roots and their aspirations. Instructional practices that leverage what students bring to the table actually lead to engaging experiences. And when we speak of affirming, this is specifically tied to their math identity. It nurtures their identity. It allows them to bring their whole selves to the learning experience, and it honors who they are. It provides mirrors and windows to help students see themselves and make connections with others so they can learn together. And finally, when we talk about the M for meaningful, this instruction nurtures students' agency and advocacy for change so they can make an impact on the communities in the world. Because ultimately, we don't want to teach kids math to torture them. We actually want them to see math as a tool to make the world a better place.
Wow, thank you both. Already my wheels are turning. I'm thinking about so many different things. Um, but I guess for me, where we should start before we even talk about math identity, like what does it mean to be good at math? Like what does that mean? I mean, maybe historically and traditionally, and what does it mean now? So either one could start, but what's it mean to be good at math?
I guess this is the awkward part of having two people on the hot seat is we have to decide which one of us is gonna sit on it first, right? And so yeah, like so I think of I kind of described a little earlier, like this narrow versus like broad view, right? And so when you think of narrow view, it might focus on rote skills and procedures. It might emphasize computation, speed. Um, and so it's not to say those things aren't important, but when I think about what it means to be good at math, it's more that the broad view that would include like a balanced instruction, right? Making sure that we're uh, it's not always about how quick you can get the answer, but maybe how methodical you are about your thought process, your approach, your strategies, the connections you can make to math, um, how math is actually used as a tool to better yourself, your community, people around you, how it informs you to make decisions. And so going beyond the what I guess what I would call the stereotypical narrow view of like if you see math in the media, it might be like, this nerdy white mathematician who like can quickly like compute everything and is seen as smart, to like the person that uses numbers and data in a way to like start to make sense of the things going around them, helps them maybe even like pose the right questions, and just open it up that it's more than that narrow view. Alon, do you want to add anything?
Well, and before you do, I want to reframe it a little bit because I hear what you're saying about being able to do like data and statistics and like seeing the beauty of math. And I hear all that. Uh, and working with teachers historically, I've heard teachers talk about like being good at math means they have their homework, they're prepared, their calculators, if they're using calculators that day, pencils, has to be a pencil, can't be blue or black ink, like it has to be a pencil. They have their notebook, everything's organized, they're good note takers, they're always raising their hands. Like, where does that fall as being a good math student, or being good at math, Rolanda?
So I would say if you think about the history of math education, or just education in general, the public school system is built on preparing students to work in like a assembly line or some type of manufacturing environment that's very linear. But if we think about the careers that we're preparing students for now, they are for jobs that don't even exist yet. So it's more important than ever that students have those critical thinking skills. Even when we think about modern day manufacturing, those jobs are very technical and require on the spot problem solving. So I think that definition of a good math student grew out of where we were as a nation at that time. But looking at where we are today, um, that is not, those aren't the skills that are needed. We have unlimited resource, not unlimited, but just a lot of resources available to us to do calculations for us. Like we're walking around with calculators in our pockets on a daily basis. So so it has to change. The way we approach it, it has to change so that we can have students that are truly ready to be 21st century citizens.
I have a question for Brian. You mentioned in your opening that we are all math people, and I hear this phrase a lot. But I think there's some educators out there who have some pushback, or even some like parents or students. What do you say to someone who says not everyone can do math, and not everyone likes doing math, not everyone needs to do math? Are we all math people, actually?
Yeah, and that's where because I hear it often, right? And I was like, we're all math people. It's like, no, Brian, like, really, I'm not. It's like, you are, but you're on the spectrum, right? And like, let's think about like what got you to where you're at right now in this moment and those life experiences. Maybe the K-12 schooling, your K-12 math experience, like, didn't allow you to see that. And it's like, and then I come in with what we're trying to do now to change that conversation, that perspective, that lens for people, for students, like right now. And so for the person that's already has deemed themselves not a math person, like in your example, adult, right? Uh, we have them reflect on their math journey of like what got them there to that point, and really think about those pivotal moments of it's interesting, like anytime we do like professional learning or a talk or like I went back to my alma mater and like did like a little thing for their council of teachers of mathematics, and it's like when you have people unpack their math journey, it's just like, all right, it's going to be a long night, I'm going to be late, because like even after it's over, like people, there's gonna be a line of people there to really start to talk about, because it's like something we don't talk about. And it needs to be surfaced so we can start to understand why we have certain behaviors, why we get anxiety, maybe when doing math, maybe because it is a limited view and we don't see the strengths we bring to the math situations in our lives, and how math can be used as a tool, not something to avoid. And so it really is just, when someone says they're not a math person, it's just like, although I did say it crushes my soul, it starts the conversation to dig deeper and help them start to see that they really are a math person, how much they use math daily.
Okay, and Rolanda, you mentioned like having high expectations with all of this, and I think many teachers, their pushback to any talk about math anxiety, math identity, any of that stuff, it just sounds soft and mushy, and you're gonna like stop being rigorous with your content and start teaching them to talk about their feelings or something. Like, what does it look like to you, math anxiety, like sorry, math identity, and how do we keep high expectations? What does that mean to you?
That is so funny. Yeah, so it does sound real soft, and a lot of times it gets misinterpreted as, oh, just put anything on the paper, we'll affirm you. But no, we still want students to reach the grade level expectations, but we want to encourage multiple approaches to get there. I think traditionally it's like do the problem my way, imitate how I'm doing it, or don't do it at all. But just giving that space for multiple entry points. So that could mean using manipulatives, even at the secondary level, using diagrams, using pictures, having that mathematical discourse between students so they can make connections between the different methods that they're using, having those open-ended tasks where where there isn't just like one way and one particular answer to get, because in the real world it's not that cut and dry. That's how we can develop a positive student's math identity. It's by we're still doing very much doing the math, but we're just opening up how we interpret what being good at math is and providing spaces for students to think in ways that might be divergent from how you approach it.
So you just kind of touched upon, I guess, my next question a little bit because I'm wondering, like, if we are focusing so much on math identity, but we have all of this content, like that we have to teach, and by grade level, like, if we're focusing on math identity first, like, where's the math? Like, where's the actual math that is involved in it? Just, I mean, you just talked about it, so I'm curious, like, if you could take us a little bit deeper into it.
Yeah, so it's integrated. We can't see that as a separate thing. Like, oh, today I'm working on math identity. Tomorrow I'm working on math. That's not the way it works. It is all integrated because you think about, let's go to an example, working out at the gym. When you're building your gym identity, you don't like walk in the gym and just do this like I'm great, I am a great workout, and then on the next day you go in and you actually lift the weights. Like you go in, you lift the weights. The next day you go back, you can lift either longer or heavier. So you're building up your confidence, right? By doing it and doing it well and getting better and better with it every day. And like the first time you do it, there might be some modifications that you do in order to perform whatever the exercise is. But as you get bigger, as you get better and stronger, then you're able to do it without those modifications. So I would say it's similar to that way. When you have those multiple entry points and you build in appropriate scaffolds, just in time scaffolds, you're giving the students access to that grade level content so that they build their confidence. And as time progresses, they're able to do the math without those same supports. And then they're feeling more confident in it. And they are building a positive math identity.
So, Brian, coming to you a little bit. So I'm hearing a lot about this math identity, and for me, I like to read, I like to listen to podcasts, I like to try to like learn more. So, where can I go? Like, who? Like, if I'm a building leader, if I'm a district leader, if I'm a teacher, like, who can provide me some good examples, some concrete, research or even concrete like resources to actually be able to help implement this cultivating positive math identity in my classroom.
Yeah, there's a couple of resources that we've leaned on as we've supported educators in our work. One would be the impact of identity in K-8 classrooms. I think there's a second edition out there now. Dr. Aguirre, Martin, and there's a third author on it that I just totally didn't recall. See, look how close it is to Rolanda.
Dr. Karen Mayfield Ingram is the third one.
Yeah, and so that's a great resource. I know there's the was it Alan and Schnell post? There's like an article in NCTM about promoting a positive math identity, and they have pillars, 4 pillars that help promote a positive math identity in your classroom, and that's another great resource that we lean on some of that work as we're supporting the educators. And so those would be like the 2 main ones I can think of off the top of my head. But then beyond like the research base and like the articles shared, when I think about just advice for teachers, um, really to me it goes beyond like you need to get to know your students, right? And know what makes them tick. And there's so many ways to do that as it's not the beginning of the year survey that you give. Like, yes, I might give you some info, but like put a question on an end of an assessment to something like, What are you looking forward to in the near future? And like little things like that, students start to share parts of their world with you. And then you can use that and leverage that to support the mathematics you teach. Seek them out during passing periods. Like I used to love, like standing at the door was like amazing because you could just choose like a couple students each week to have that passing period conversation with and like start to, again, get to know them as people. And then once you get to know them as people and the humans that they are, you could start to incorporate that and leverage those assets they bring within their lives, within your instruction, to promote their identity in the classroom.
My next question is, in the world we live in, there's so much like testing culture and things, and there's all this pressure. How does that set kids back, and how do we help them get back into like believing they're a math person or having a positive math identity if they're, over tested and feeling like, they don't keep up, they don't have good grades or good scores on the tests? How do we bounce back from that?
When I was in the classroom, on the first day of school, I used to say, I don't care about the end of course test or the integrate test, what you make. And the kids would be like, what? And I told them, if you just do what you're supposed to do, um, in this class, like that's just going to be a positive side effect that you're going to do. You're going to perform where you need to perform on the integrate or end of course test. But what I really want you to focus on is becoming critical thinkers, becoming problem solvers, and just really focus in on doing math and like on the process and not just answer getting. Now, of course, me saying that on the first day of school is not going to be like, and the rest of the year was great. We had no problems. That did not happen. But it does set the stage for a different approach. And then you have to continue to back up that approach throughout the year. And that is through the activities that you do, like promoting student discourse, not always centering the teacher as the sole source of knowledge in the classroom or the text as the sole source of knowledge in the classroom, letting students know that they too have knowledge they can contribute. So that means we're having a lot of student discourse. We're making connections between the different approaches that the students have. We're having those open-ended tasks where they have to think outside of the box to come up with a solution, putting in and truly putting emphasis on the process, rather than just always having them focus on the final answer. And depending on what grade it is that you're teaching, like you have more things to undo. When I was talking about when math became controversial for me, I didn't go into a lot of detail, but when I first got to the district, like I had taught 6 through 12. And then I first got to the district, I was then supporting K-12. And when I began to visit K-5 math classrooms, I was just astonished at how curious and willing the kids were at that age. But a lot of times, for a variety of reasons, I would see teachers kind of squashing that curiosity when they were discovering things and they were working out problems a little different way, but it was still correct what they were doing. And the teacher was really just on like, this is the way you have to do it. And I saw that. And then I connected that to the experiences I had in secondary where students were kind of disillusioned by the time we got there. So we have to really foster that curiosity and take advantage of it when we have it, when they're very young, and continue to promote that as they move up in the grade levels.
And let me maybe bring in Brian here. I'm thinking now about the current political climate that we're in. Is this going to push some people too far? Like, what advice do you have for teachers or admin who are feeling some pushback against anything that's not, the content only?
Oh, Chris.
Didn't mean to make it too heavy for you.
No, it's completely fine and it's valid. We need to be discussing this, and so I appreciate it and you for that. What comes to mind is that this is good for all students, right? Like, and so we know that just from experience, like there are people that see math as something that you can or cannot do. And in our role, we're trying to open that up, right? And so to have it just goes back to like to promote a positive classroom culture, a place of curiosity where students like want to like figure things out. Like there's you can't I would hope we can't politicize math identity, right? Has that word identity connected to it, and so that has, some danger right now in that climate. But like, what when we actually have a conversation what we're talking about, it's something that we would want for all kids and honestly for all adults.
And that kind of brings me to my last question is, so, we're talking to parents, who say, I'm not a math person. We're talking to uh, principals who believe it's maybe not important, upper level administrators who maybe think this isn't important, but the most important ones are the kids as well, who may not see themselves in a math class and that they belong in that math class. So, in each of those layers, from upper administration, voting level, teachers, kids, and parents, what advice or message do you have for them?
It has been my experience when I talk to adults who say they are not math people or they don't get math, and then they explain to me like something they do regularly on their job or something they do regularly in their personal life. I say, that's math, right? And they say, "Oh no, that's not math. This is fun," or like this is easy for me to do. So there seems to be a disconnect between school math and real life math, and it shouldn't be that way. So I think there definitely has to be some messaging and understanding around like what math truly is. Ultimately, math is noticing patterns, generalizing those patterns, and applying those generalizations to the things that we see around us. So helping people, the adults, to see that school math and math should be synonymous, and then passing those messages down to the students. And when we have gleam instruction, where we have grade level affirming, engaging, affirming, and meaningful instruction, particularly meaningful, where we are connecting math to real life phenomena where people can see it in their daily life, um, that's where that's where the mindset shift begins to happen, because it's truly a mindset shift that has to happen. So we just have to keep fighting the good fight, talking to people, being exposed to things like this so that we can change our mindset.
And Brian, can you add like talking to upper level administration, like superintendents, assistant superintendents, maybe even school board?
Yeah, and so in all the different hats I've wore through the career, like I've had the experience of actually having to do this, and so I can just talk about my experience. And so I think that it's more of a data approach for me. And us like, let's sit down and look at like who is math working for in our system and who is it not. And so when we sit down and look at data as kids and which kids are making it to our upper level math, like let's look at our progression, right? Like how many kids are in honors algebra 1 in 8th grade? Okay, what's their trajectory? All right, they should be maybe in like AP calculus as a senior. Let's look at your feeder system. Like how many kids are sitting in honors algebra 1? All right, let's track those kids over time. How many are sitting like so if you have 4 sections at a feeder middle school honors algebra 1 and you have a half section filled with AP calculus, something in our system is broken. Kids are leaking out of our math pipeline, and like we need to figure out why. Um, and then so digging into that, like data with curriculum, um, superintendents, things like that. Like we found it seems to be like after algebra 2 is where that like diverge happened, right? And so then it's like, let's reflect on that, like what's happening. And so then it's like, is that where maybe like emphasis on assessment procedures, rote skills is like breaking down. And now all of a sudden they have to apply all these things they've learned over time in the upper level courses. And like maybe that's it, maybe. And so like just having those conversations about, well, and then going backwards of if the data shows that students are dropping out of mathematics in our program, the longer we have them, right? From honors track to non-honors track to not even taking a math course their senior year because they don't have to, because they took one maybe in middle school, a high school course. So then it's just like we need to figure out like why that's happening and part of it is probably our view and what we're emphasizing and like how they see themselves, from honor student to like not even taking math anymore. Like that's shaping, that's the opposite of cultivating a positive math identity, right? Like they're exiting the math as soon as they can.
Okay, I think that concludes our questioning round.
We will now end by giving our debaters 2 minutes to make their final arguments to you. Rolanda and Brian, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Chris. I've really enjoyed having this discussion today. And I just wanted to leave with these thoughts. In order to get different outcomes, we need different approaches. Cultivating a positive math identity is a key lever in making this shift. Ideally, math should be a gateway rather than a gatekeeper. It is important that we widen our definition of math success so that we can help students prepare to be college and career ready in the 21st century.
And so I like to build on Rolando talking about widening our view of math and how we can promote a positive math identity by staying curious ourselves. Earlier, I shared that stat about 1 in 4 teachers felt anxiety, like reported feeling anxiety while doing math. And it's weird because like in my experience as supporting like secondary math teachers, a lot of times we seem to like build our self-worth on this notion of like our ability to like do school mathematics. And so we see this the AP calculus teacher that's like on this high pedestal of like doing the highest level math that our system offers. And it's like we're scared not to know. But we need to create this space where we need to promote a positive math identity within ourselves, which includes it's okay not to know. It's okay to explore mathematics alongside your students. But it's not okay to not know and do nothing about it. There's so many ways in which we can collaborate with colleagues within our professional learning communities, within our education, like social media networks, like explore math, get to know it at a deeper level, see the connections and see like just all the things that it could like make yourself better today than you were yesterday, right? And so that's what I just like to leave you with is stay curious.
Well, thank you both. And that concludes this wonderful debate. Thank you for all the good ideas and good thoughts.
And now it is up to our listeners to take a moment and ponder the arguments and share with your friends what resonated with you. Be sure to follow us on Blue Sky at Debate Math to share your thoughts on this debate. What stood out to you? Where do you stand on math identity?
And again, huge thanks to both of our guests. You were lovely and had some really good, deep thoughts and willing to handle some pushback from us.
And thanks to all those who are listening. We hope you enjoyed and learned from this debate.
And then as we wrap up, Rolanda, where can listeners find you?
Yes, so I'm on LinkedIn as Rolanda Baldwin, also on X as Ro Knows Math. And of course, you could always go to unbounded.org to find out about programs that can help you to improve your math identity and read some blog posts that we have.
And Brian, where can listeners find you other than the Standards Institute this summer?
Thanks for that plug. I would definitely be there. It's like I'm always like as a person that supports program design, I'm like in the back, like, are they going to like it? Is it going to go well? And like, you're just sitting there in the back. It's such a great event. So thanks for it. Yeah, we're in Aurora, Colorado in June, and then Atlanta, Georgia in July with some local events as well in between. But just connecting with me, unbounded.org would be a great place to go. Kind of given up the social media thing a little bit. I haven't found my home, formal X user here, but I do have a LinkedIn. I don't even know how to find what my handle is. Brian M. Dean. I don't know. Google me. Look for this face. If you're listening to the podcast, you can't see my face. So sorry about that.
We'll put it all in the show notes, some links to everything.
Yeah. Thank you all. Thank you both so much.
Yes, thank you.
Want to learn more about incorporating debate activities into your math classroom? Go
go to luzniak.com/podcast to sign up for my mailing list and get your first set of example debate activities you could use with your students today. Go to luzniak.com/podcast.
Don't forget to reach out to us with comments and questions on debatemath.com or follow us on Twitter at debatemathpod and follow along with hashtag debatemathpod.
Rate us and review us on Apple Podcasts
or wherever you listen to this podcast. Your feedback is super important to us.
Well, that's all from us.
Looking forward to debating with you more next episode. Until next time, cheers.